Hello, guys. So recently I was asked by a member of my club called Angel Fire what she should build on her lucid between penetration and damage increase. And I actually thought it was a pretty good question. So I'm going to be answering that question. But first, I just want to explain the core mechanics. I wasn't 100% sure, so I asked on the forums, and I want to thank Starks. I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry. I want to thank this player for actually giving me the math and pointing out one thing that I couldn't remember was how the defense worked, and he confirmed to me the basic principles. So let's get started. What are the things you're looking at when you're looking at a player? And for this, we can already look at a few of the very basic things. So for example, this is my friend's lucid. She just took a picture. I don't think this actually counts in her active. So you're going to see the very basic stats you're looking at. And when you're looking at a striker, just basically four things actually you're going to be looking at. It's going to be dribble. You're going to be looking at critical damage, penetration, and damage increase. Now, damage increase isn't actually visible on the striker, so it's free when you look at the player card. So how do you actually calculate the damage? So of course, well, dribble is the damage, and critical damage multiplies the damage. So that's not something very complicated. But the question is, how exactly does damage increase work? A lot of people are saying, well, at the place of multiplying by a value, you divide by a value. That's not actually how it works. The trick is actually to take, for example, if someone has 90% damage damage reduction, you take the inverse of that, so it's going to be 1 minus that value. So in this case, 10%. And then you're going to multiply it by every damage increase value you have. So this is why, especially in PvE, this is very powerful, because some PvE goalkeepers have 40% damage resistance. So you have 60%, who is then going to be multiplied over and over, who's going to be allow us to go above 100% and to get some ridiculously high values of negative damage decrease, who's something that a lot of us have been using in COT. So if you want to see, for example, here is the math. You have 90% damage resistance, 10% of increase the damage. When you do that, it doesn't actually bring it down to 80% or multiply it by some weird way some people have been doing it. You take 10%, who's the opposite of 90, you multiply it by 1.1, and then you basically got that number. Now, I don't know where exactly he got this from. Oh yeah, that's the total multiplier for his DR, because he was using multiple ones at the same time. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying. So that's how he got it. So even through he had 10%, 10%, 20%, 15%, it really didn't increase it that much. Why? Because the base was actually 10%. If it had actually been 80% damage reduction, this would have been much more powerful. At the place of being 16% of increase, it would have been 33%, lowering the person down a lot more. So it's very complicated to do the math. The real problem here is the higher the damage decrease of the goalkeeper, the much weaker damage increase is going to be. And vice versa. If they have low damage decrease, it's going to be much more powerful. But there's not just damage decrease. There's penetration. As we all know, penetration is one of the most important stats, especially in the old days. It has been nerfed a very long time ago. It used to be able to reduce entirely damage reduction. But now what it does is you take the goalkeeper's damage and then you divide it by the penetration value itself divided by 2. So for example, if you have 100 damage reduction and you have 100 penetration, you're going to be dividing by 2. So it ends up being 0.5. So it's going to be 100% times 0.5. And then you're basically going to go down. It's the same idea. If you're at 50%, it's times 0.25. And it's basically going to be just dividing it. The max it can ever go is 50%. You're capped at 100% penetration. If for any reason you're above that, in-game, it's going to keep you at 100. If there's a pen decrease, if the increased pen comes from a line buff, you will still be able to go above the cap. If it doesn't, you won't. It's kind of like weird shit that goes down. And then there's defense, was actually a source of DR. I know not a lot of people use it, and people trash on it. This is kind of why I used to run Lilith back in the day, is because decreasing defense actually decreases DR. And in itself, it seems the math, I wasn't 100% sure about it, but in fast version, this is what it would have given. So you're going to multiply by whatever your defense is, divided by 1,500 times your DR, who's a form of buff. So it's also pretty decent. Now, critical damage, this is extremely easy to calculate. Critical damage is, well, just multiplies the value. You got 100 attack multiplied by critical damage, 150. Critical damage resistance is just a minus. Again, very easy to calculate. This is why, for example, if you're running Presti, you're running a Shaman, you're running a Duran, and you're running the, I keep forgetting what the name of the new light unique on Presti, you could be able to, even for your getting crit, to not actually take critical damage, who allows you to not waste stones, resource players, and subs on critical resistance, who can be pretty interesting, and it's something that I'm looking towards. Here, now DR my blah blah blah, we all agree, so pretty clear on how exactly that works, and he's showing you the values. Now, I'm going to be like linking this part in the description. You can go look at it slowly. But to go back on exactly what my friend was saying, should she get a damage increase stone or should she get a DI stone? And she's more asking this on a PvP front. So I'm just going to be filling out what kind of stats I would be imagining the enemy goalkeeper running for just the base idea. So in PvP, you're going to realize the majority of the time the goalkeepers have around 80 to 90% of damage decrease in high leagues. As we saw earlier from my friend's picture, currently she's sitting at 52.6 penetration. She's running a Balteon and a Sure Online, so there's not going to be any big changes to that. Of course, if she had Armel, that could be really good for her. But then it's kind of the issue that Lucid really takes advantage from passes. It would be a bit more technical on how to calculate the value of exactly Armel versus having a passer. Well, that's a question for another day. Now, if we're looking at it, I basically entered already all her stats. I gave like some random values to the goalkeeper. I'm just gonna maybe lower that just a little bit. That does seem kind of high to me. Your defense. And we didn't give him any critical damage resistance because, I mean, that is not the most common thing nowadays. So pretty much the idea would be she's gonna be hitting for this much. I copied the number, guys. Don't hate. Also, she kind of forgot to actually count her active in this picture because it's not visible here. But again, I mean, we're pretty much going to be able to tell it's going to be 7k and above, and it's going to increase the critical rate, who was a bit low in this picture. But there's Shura, so it kind of works somehow. It does. Now, when you're looking at this, she has 1 damage increase, the Ardor critical damage stone, then she has the penetration. And then her question was, should I get a 2nd penetration, or should I re-roll a slot for Ardor critical damage increasing stone? Now, a few things that you do need to point out is the stone would affect the critical damage value up top, but the reason we use those is honestly mostly for the increasing damage. So if we were to give this, we would need to remove 2 lower penetration. I don't remember the exact value, guys. I'm getting a bit fed up with how the math is getting because BB did not feel like making numbers even or odd. You know what I'm talking about, like 40%. Why couldn't it just be 15 to make all of us happy? No, it needed to be some bullshit in the middle value. Yeah, I know we can all agree on the fact that they should have been just rounded values. So let me just check fast on the phone what is the exact value of penetration. So she'd be losing 18% of penetration to get 14% of damage increase. So we're going to just look at exactly how this is going to affect the base damage. So the damage dealt to goalkeeper on crit. This is when there's 2 people, so it's the most standard value that you should be looking at. So if we're going to be doing this, equal this minus 18, that's 34. So she did lose 500 damage, a bit more actually than that. And if we give her a 14, it's still not going to be able to cover it. I'm even going to be generous. I know it's not the right value, but I'm gonna make this a 30% critical damage stone. I'm gonna be generous. It's still not able to match the original damage. So again, I did 85. I'm not even gonna be talking to you about goalkeepers in a higher league who have higher damage resistance. So to mainly answer her question, she should not reroll a stone, and she should keep her dark penetration stone because it would cost her dimension stones, and she would lose around 200 damage on a goalkeeper in a two-man co-op, and this isn't even talking about higher level damage reduction goalkeepers where there will be a much bigger loss compared to just having penetration. I'm not saying damage increase is bad. I personally run some on Vonchi, but Vonchi always crits, and he has an insane kind of build. It works. He has penetration. He kind of has everything. Now, the thing is, maybe for penetration, unlike increased damage, there are some forms of counters, so you always want to try get it as high as possible, just in case they have Duran and a unique stone to counter it. So I hope this helps you guys at least have a little idea, and I hope that my clubmate understands that she should not reroll the stone. It's not worth it. Instead, she should spend the dimension stones towards certain light legends, unless she really wants to keep Alice. Have a good day, guys, and I hope this helps you guys get the principles.